Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss Donald Trump's latest attempts to outbid Biden in terms of economic policy. Essentially, he has advocated what might amount to a world trade war. It would certainly be the furthest thing from what the Brexiteers promised in terms of trade with the United States. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So let's see if I can manage a video about the orange one without getting caught up by fake videos this time. It's the Washington Post, so I should be safe. And according to the article, Trump, the grand poobah of MAGA, former President Tiny Hands, the great orange hope for the Brexiteers, has been wrestling with the main political problem he has in facing off against Biden. If we ignore his legal problems, the issue is that Biden has not only regenerated the US economy, but he has been politically smart about the way he's gone about it. A lot of the jobs being created with this Inflation Reduction Act have been for the very people Trump targeted. Those sort of, as we would have said in this country, left behind. Because in 2016, Trump succeeded by accurately pointing out that politics was letting down ordinary Americans. Drain the swamp, he said. And he wasn't wrong. What he failed to tell Americans was that although conventional politicians were indeed letting them down, Trump was going to be way worse. Biden looks like he has worked hard to limit the allure of statements like that. After all, populism works on the basis of convincing people that they are being failed by the current system, so breaking that system is the only option. So how do you combat populism? You make the system work for people. So according to the article, Trump had a meeting to come up with an economic plan to beat Biden. One of them was reportedly a universal tariff on all goods being imported into the USA. Naturally, this would trigger one hell of a trade war around the world. But it would be particularly bad for the UK, given that we bucked the global trend of arranging closer trade relations with our neighbours. We've actually been raising trade barriers. We're already in an incredibly vulnerable position. Our trade with both the EU and globally is suffering. There are some Brexit shysters trying to convince people that trade is at record levels, but that is based on, oh, look, in pounds, look, but they're not taking inflation into account. They're comparing 2022 pounds with 2019 pounds. Like, no, they're not the same value. Do it in real terms or base it on volumes or something like that. Our exports are down, right? Where we are right now is looking at a long-term future of continuing stagflation. A stagnant economy with, like, if there's growth at all, it's like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, who cares? With inflation higher than it should be. So the idea that the largest economy in the world may just apply a blanket tariff of 10%, as Trump suggested, on all of their imports would run the risk of another international economic crisis, but would be devastating for the UK. A very significant chunk of our exports goes to the US. This brain fart of Trump's to apply these tariffs is all about compelling Americans to buy American goods rather than imports by making those imports much more expensive. The policy is deliberately designed to reduce imports. Well, can you imagine? Our exports are already struggling. Can you imagine British businesses exporting to America suddenly finding that their goods are going to be up to 10% more expensive in that market overnight? And what about the general public in terms of their attitude to Brexit? So let me get this right. You backed a man who's, let's imagine the orange one wins the presidency, God forbid, but let's say. So the public will say to Brexit, right, so you backed this guy who's now applied 10% tariffs to all of our exports to the US, right? And you also convinced us to raise trade barriers with the people who want to be our friends. What? What are you doing? I can't imagine this is going to improve the British public's attitude towards Brexit. Can you? The EU will fight this as they always do with targeted retaliatory tariffs against politically sensitive American exports to Europe. They've done this before. I've mentioned it before. They've done it on more than one occasion as well. Whereas most countries, so, you know, when you get involved in a trade war, so a particular country or market raises tariffs for no good reason against your exports, you retaliate usually by targeting their exports to you that'll have the biggest economic impact. The EU have a history of playing much smarter than that. They don't do that. They target businesses which are a big deal, not throughout that market, in this case America, but in the parts of America where very influential members of Congress represent. In other words, they hurt the businesses which matter most to the most powerful politicians. When George Bush Jr. tried it, for example, he later complained, why are the EU hurting my family? Because that's what the EU did. They targeted his family's businesses. That's what you do. What we do. Remember that we're already delaying import controls because we can't afford to raise the cost of goods in the UK for fear of stoking inflation even higher. We're not just too small to wage an effective trade war with the US, but no government could afford the political fallout. I suppose the Tories, especially in opposition, will claim that they would have arranged a special deal with Trump, you know, to make the UK an exception, because that's what Brexit's all about, British exceptionalism. Nonsense, of course. Trump is interested only in Trump. Not that it would even help Trump. As the article points out, the reaction would be devastating even for America. The problem with this thinking is it's very Brexit. It's very childlike in its thinking. It's based on American exceptionalism this time. Works on the basis that the UK can impose these blanket tariffs in order to get Americans to buy more American goods without realising how it will hurt American exports when the retaliation occurs. Also, as the article points out, if you raise tariffs on all imports, you crush even American producers who need those imported materials for their own production. It would also make goods cost more for ordinary Americans, so it will drive up inflation, whilst lowering trade levels around the world, so knackering jobs. Like I say, very Brexit in its thinking. But it is the sort of thinking which is not going to be compatible with the real Brexit. The true Brexit believers thought that we would be this beacon to the world to tear down trade barriers and usher in this global free market utopia. Like all extremists, they made the mistake of not only being really certain that their way was best, but that they were in tune with the majority. When it came to it, actually the silent majority agreed with them. But they did not. The world did not follow suit. They took advantage of the fact that we'd lowered our trade barriers and would be so desperate for trade deals that we would concede almost anything to get them. New Zealand news presenters were laughing while they were reporting on our trade deal. You know, because it's not just that the rest of the world did not follow the Pied Piper of Brexit. The reverse has actually happened because by coincidence, it is coincidence, international events have actually led major markets to become more protectionist than they already were. This has made our new isolated status even more precarious. Trump used to be their lifeline. Now he's proposing something that would harm their Brexit dream even worse than Biden. We would end up being isolated in the middle of a worldwide trade war. And as I said, we are unable to raise trade barriers even to the international standards for fear of rampant inflation and shortages. How on earth are we supposed to compete in a trade war where you have to raise them even higher? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.